here we are once again. It is comic book spectrum time.
Yay!
And I think we got everybody that's here. And I do have to make mention of one thing before we get started.
Okay.
There is no show next week. If we had a show next week, you guys would kill me. There's no show next week.
Next week is Thanksgiving, ain't it?
No. Yeah, exactly.
That's
why I say you would kill me if we had a show next week.
Oh, yeah, because I got to cook. You can come over and eat.
No, Thanksgiving is the week after next.
Oh, it's week after next.
It's week after
it's
next.
The 27th.
It's the 27th.
It's the week after next.
Yeah,
did I get my weekend mixed up? Yeah, I got my weekends mixed up. No, I got my weekends mixed up.
It's okay.
But there's no show on Thanksgiving. That's pretty much what I'm saying here.
Don't do that to me, man. I haven't bought my turkey yet.
I got since it's just the four of us this year, maybe one guest. I got one of those turkey breasts. There's no wings or drumsticks and stuff, since it's just the four of us, and that'll still give us enough meat to last us an extra day or so.
See, you got enough to make sandwiches afterwards.
Yeah, we can make sandwiches because I got 2 packs of biscuits and I got a box of Bisquick. So, if I really want to, I can bake some biscuits.
You can make some biscuits. You can make pizza dough. You can make a whole bunch of stuff.
I made pancakes this weekend.
Now, before she comes in here and hears me,
okay,
we're talking about leftovers. The first Thanksgiving that my wife and I had in our own place, I did it up. I cooked the turkey, everything.
Aww.
Everything. Because, I'm the cook in the house because we like to eat. And the next day, it's tradition. You got to have a turkey sandwich. Mm-hmm. And she was in the kitchen. I was like, would you mind making me a turkey sandwich while you're in there? And of course, she walks in the room now. And she got the turkey out and she just goes, "Hey, Cliff, this turkey has white and dark meat in it." I'm like, yeah. She goes, "It's an integrated turkey."
You about to die on live TV. Hey, Cliff.
Her parents aren't really big. Her family's not really big on the cooking thing, so she's never seen the inside of the turkey.
Don't worry, she never cooked the turkey. She never cooked the chicken. She never cooked the duck. She never cooked anything that was a bird.
No,
so understand there's white meat and dark meat.
The white and the black turkeys were the white and the dark meat. Yeah.
Oh.
I'm sorry, I shouldn't be laughing, but that was fun.
Yeah.
So, somebody needs to tune in to the Galloping Gourmet or reruns of Julia Child or something.
It's funny because I grew up. That's how I learned to cook, because the guy who's the Galloping Gourmet used to be on Channel 32, and he during the summer.
Graham Kerr.
Yeah, Graham Kerr. And he actually had a thing for Black cooking, Southern style cooking, because he was really into grits and cornbread, and he liked greens when prepared properly.
Hi there.
Hey, guy. Hey, Queen. How you doing? He wasn't into chitlins, but considering what chitlins are, once you tell somebody, because I when my kids were younger, I had said, hey, maybe I should make some chitlins. And they were like, "Mom, what's chitlins?" And I stupidly explained what they were before prepping them. And they were like, "Nah." It's like, well, you put some ketchup and stuff. And they're like, nope. No. The
only way you could get people to eat that stuff is that you have to prepare it first and be like, "Here, try it." And they'd be like, "It's yummy." And then it's like, "Oh, now you had your experience with."
But you have to know how. You have to know how to prepare it, and B, you have to know how to prepare it so it doesn't stink up your house and most of the neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
You could always. That was the one thing about the projects. Drive by. Even you could during the holidays, you could smell them before you got near them, because almost every other grandma was making chitlins. somebody's grandma, great aunt, or whatever was making a pot of chitlins. Hint, Cliff, if you end up with more than half the chitlins after you've cleaned them, you ain't done it right. So if you get 20 pounds, you ain't supposed to have more than 10. I'm one of those idiots though. I was like, okay, I want to make sure I got no more than 9. Because I'm like, I know what them chitlins have been. And so I'm trying to be extra careful.
My mom, when I started dating Micah, before we got married, I couldn't decide if she was trying to run her off or just seeing how brave she was, because she cooked like every Beverly Hillbillies stereotypical Southern meal you could think of.
Oh
We
my
had
God.
rabbit, we
Hog
had
ball,
squirrel.
hog
Because
maul.
Micah, how'd you like that possum?
Oh,
I'm like,
It
what are
used
you doing?
it used to be here on the south side, because on the west side where I spent my early years, they didn't have them. But on the south side, they used to have corner stores where they sold possum and raccoon. You could come in and buy possum and raccoon, because I did not know that there were areas of the south side, especially around the train tracks and stuff, because they were underdeveloped. There would be possums and raccoons hanging out there. First year I lived here, in this lot next to me, there's a tree, and before they started cutting it back, there was a possum used to live in that tree, and every time I walked by, it would hiss at me. Like, you walking by my tree, and it's like, yeah, I ain't eating you, so shut up.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
I
I thought the
love
break.
you made chicken. Oh my goodness, Lair, you made chicken livers. I love chicken livers. I can't. They will not eat chicken livers. And Harold's, and you've heard me talk about this before, Joe. Harold's used to make Harold's Chicken,
the
which is
original
one
Harold's
the
franchise used to make it,
Harold's
just
franchise
like the
used to
original
make,
Leon's used to do them too.
and they don't do them anymore. And my heart is broken, because there are times when I get a taste for chicken livers. And it's one of those things. It's not something you could just throw. You gotta clean them, and you gotta spice them and flour them and stuff. So it's not something you can throw in the microwave and be done with in a couple of minutes. And I don't want to have something that I need to put that much work into, and then don't nobody want to eat it but me. Yeah. But let me get up and make pancakes and eggs and sausages, and they're all like, oh, "Is today Mom's, apothecary diner day?"
Yeah. I was convinced the breaking point was going to be when Mom made breakfast food, and she looked at Mike, and she goes, "Mike, how'd you like those eggs?" And she's like, "They were good. They had pork brains in them." It's like, oh shit.
No, she did the scramble with the bread. Oh my goodness!
I was like, ah, damn. I liked this one too.
Did she
Okay.
do? Did she do a white gravy or a brown, or just the
She
eggs that
doesn't
she
do
didn't
great.
add it?
She
Okay.
just she just scrambled it into eggs and passed it off as scrambled eggs. I was like, no, Mom, why did
Can
you
your
do
mama
this?
do pan bread? Can your mama
She
do
used
skillet
to.
bread?
Hmm.
Can she give me the recipe and instructions? Because I can't make it to save my soul. And I think it's because my stepmother, some folks, when they want you to fail, they don't give you all the information.
Hmm.
And I
Well,
think that was part of it. She would only give me half the information, so I could never make it right. And I would
well,
love, especially now, to be able to make some pan bread, because
yeah.
that's all we did.
Sadly, Mama passed without giving me that recipe.
Oh,
And if it's with any of my brothers or sisters, I'll never see it because they don't know where it's at.
okay.
So
Do you want my gumbo? Excuse me. You want my gumbo recipe?
I've got a gumbo recipe, but I appreciate it.
I can. I was about to say, if you didn't have one, I would give you mine, because they don't
My
cook.
main goal right now is I am determined to make my grandmother's rice pudding taste like hers, but it never does.
I could never make it right. My mama. That was one of the few things my mama could make, was rice pudding. I like with
Mm,
raisins and the cinnamon, and because some folks don't get it. Some people either have too little cinnamon or too much nutmeg. It's you got to get your spices in there right, because
Yeah,
otherwise the flavor, and if it's too sweet, it's like no. But if it's not sweet enough,
mhm.
there's a science
Yeah.
to that.
And it's that weird grandma magic, because I have her handwritten recipe and I'll take nothing like it. It's that grandma magic.
My mother used to make the best lemon cream pie, but then um, they got to where you couldn't use raw eggs in it anymore. They now say
Mm.
don't use raw eggs. So I can make the lemon cream pie, but you have to, instead of making your cream and then just um, browning your meringue, you now have to put that cream in the oven and let it cook a bit. Unless you get your eggs from Europe and you have to be in Europe. Ooh, barbecue. I like a good barbecue sauce. It's not hot and spicy, is it? You lying, see?
She did the whole paste pecani sauce.
Where is this from? New York City. Well, I wanted to get started real quick on something, if I may. And
Okay.
this is genre related. Um, as people know, I'm a Frankenstein fan. I love Mary Shelley's book. And Del Toro's Frankenstein is now available on Netflix. If you can get one of them discounted 1 month free or 50% off on Netflix just to watch this, as well as catch, some down, down, down. Sorry, Cliff. Um, I highly recommend it. Um, this is an interesting take on Shelley's book, um, because yes, it's Del Toro. So you're going to get the visuals, but it's not the classic, it's not what we think of as the classic horror with Frankenstein. The ending, and I love it because it follows more closely to the book, and the point of it begins the way the book does, which is they find Victor dying on the ice, and he tells the captain of the ship where he's brought to his story. And then they break, and Del Toro splits this into two stories. It's, well, three, because you see the story of the captain and his ship stranded in the ice, they've got a mission that they don't tell you what it is in this movie. You don't know what their mission is, other than the fact that he's been commissioned to get this boat somewhere, but they're stuck in the ice, and they can't get there. So you get their story. Then the point at which they interact with Victor, and then you get Victor's story. And after Victor tells you his side of the situation, you get the creature's story. Ladies, we get to see Oscar Isaac naked. Yes, we do. We now know why Mrs. Isaac is a happy woman. Ain't saying more than that, but hello. So for the ladies, this is a watch in that regard. He's in the tub. It's a lovely shot. Um, but along with Oscar, everybody gives great performances. And Del Toro did a little something different with the character of Elizabeth, who, if you've read the book, she ends up married to Victor. In this version, she is actually the fiance of Victor's brother, William. But she and Victor kind of have a bond. And what they've done is they've made her a woman of intelligence. She has, whereas Victor's obsession is death. And we kind of get what they do is they let us know why Victor has this obsession with trying to defeat death, to make death, not minimalize it, but make it irrelevant. And that's because of what happens to his mother, as well as his father, played brilliantly by Charles Dance, is an idiot. He's not an idiot. He's a butthead. because we can't say the word I want to use that starts with an A and ends with a hole. Since we're not allowed to say
you can because the TVMA is on.
he's an asshole. Okay, thank you. And if Beanie and Lils are sitting there nodding, cussing, Beanie and Lils are watching, hello, I'm trying to be a good person. Stop. What? He's not, he is a monster, and he is monstrous in his actions toward Victor and his wife, who in this version of the story, they make clear that Victor's father married his mother because she had the title. And by marrying her, he could get the title. Victor's mother dies.
I like that.
Sadly. And because of the way she dies, Victor decides he needs to defeat death because she was his connection to the world. And we see Victor growing up, becoming a scientist. I don't want to give too much away, but his obsession, thanks to his mother's death, is a driving point for him because he feels like if he had, and he was a child, he was in his early, I think he had to be about 12, 13 at the point that she died. So he wasn't like an adult, but there's that shame and guilt, and she was his one connection in the world. That anger, that grief, he wants to defeat death. Death becomes his enemy. It is as if it is it's so funny to say, is a living thing that he feels he has to defeat and make irrelevant, if not eradicate altogether. That is his driving force within this. And he sets off to prove first, through regular means, he gives they show him giving a presentation and everything. It's really it's Del Toro, you know. If you haven't seen Pan's Labyrinth or any of his other movies, what the hell is wrong with you? This man he can tell a story visually. He can grab you by the brain and go, ah, and you just like, okay, whatever you say there. Okay, Guillermo, just take me where you going. I'm following. But anyway, it on the one hand, it is equally grotesque and lush and beautiful. And the fact that he balances that, you know, even though there are times where you go, ooh, it's not so much that you're like, oh, I can't deal with this. You want to know how this ends, even if you've read it, no matter how many other Frankenstein. And my journey with Frankenstein started with the Universal. Okay, so tell you how far back I go. Yeah, I was that old. But it is beautifully done. It is incredibly well acted. Don't make me show up at your house, Jeff.
No, I'm reading the comments. So.
And Jacob Elordi as the creature. Yeah, he is fearsome, especially at the beginning when we first meet him. But then we see him grow. We see him change. And I have not seen it done this well since Penny Dreadful. Penny Dreadful's creature is we see his redemption arc. You know, that he can mourn the death of Britain's poet laureate when he dies, because that last season that becomes one of the pillars of that season. The closest other we got was Frankenstein, The True Story, which NBC presented in 1973. It was a British production, and Michael Saracen played the creature. And Michael Saracen was a hottie back in the day. Women would look at him and go, ooh. And they presented the creature where he starts out really, ooh. And by the end of the movie, he's like, okay, bye. You see, as the creature grows inwardly, he degrades outwardly. Alardi's creature is different. You do see a physical degradation, but his creature is truly immortal. He cannot die. I mean, they shoot him. They near blowed him up at one time. He has to fight off a pack of wolves. He gets dunked under the ice, dude. Just he's the energizer bunny of monsters, you know. And luckily, what I'm grateful for is they didn't call him the monster, because in Shelley's book, he is not the monster. He is not Frankenstein's monster. He is the creature. She, to the point, she humanizes him because she doesn't call him a monster. He does monstrous things, but she refers to him as the creature. And in this movie, he is the creature. And by the time you get to the end of this story, it is tugging you in the feels. And what you think of who is the monster and who is not changes in this movie. And I love that. It's got not so much jump scares, but it's definitely got some things that are going to make you feel queasy and uneasy. In fact, if you are someone who the idea of looking at a corpse where the spine is exposed, the skin's pulled back and the spine is exposed and whatnot, this ain't your movie. Believe me, there's some stuff in this movie. You're gonna see body parts and stuff. If that bothers you, you're not going to want to watch this movie. But if you can get through all of that and get into the story, what makes the story? Because understand, this was an 18-year-old girl who wrote this as part of a dare. They were telling each other stories, and this was her contribution. One of the other people who wrote something was Polidori, who wrote The Vampire. Which is said to, in some ways, inspired Bram Stoker's Dracula. But that this 18-year-old girl has written this story that every time you turn around, it is being either retold by someone else or someone's trying to take some take on it. It is masterfully done. It is beautifully acted. Jacob Elordi, he's 6'5". Okay, so he's a nice tall guy. He makes Oscar Isaac look like a 5. I saw an interview with him, and he was sitting next to Oscar Isaac, who looked like a 5-year-old next to him. And Oscar Isaac, he's not like 4 foot something. He's like 5'11", maybe 6, but he just looks so tiny next to him. It's hilarious. But he, as the creature, you see his character develop. His portrayal of the creature it's exceptionally well done. And I would say, if you love the movie, there's a reason why this movie got 15-minute applause at the Venice Film Festival, someplace where they don't show a lot of horror films. The fact that it was Del Toro was probably the only reason they had it there. And people just stood up and they got a standing ovation because people were so caught up in the story. And like I said, that is the thing. I highly recommend that you watch it. Parents, watch it first. You know your kids better than I did. Though I will say I was watching horror at like 8 or 9 years old, but that's my insanity. I'm not going to inflict that on anyone else. I would say watch it first, and then if it's not too shocking to you and you think your kids can, a child under 12 can handle it, sit there with your kids, watch it, talk about it. And I will tell you, one of the reasons Del Toro has been sitting with this story since he was a child. And it affected him then. And I get that. It affected me at a young age. And one of the things that drove him about this story was his relationship with his father. And he does, in a way, make that relationship between Victor and the creature very much a father-son type situation. And like I said, it just works. And that's all I'm saying. Watch it. Let me know. Lenscaponline.com. or find me at Elaine Haygood here on YouTube. Come to my page. Hey, I saw it. This is what you think. We'll have a conversation.
Now, it's fairly long, isn't it?
It is a long, it's shorter than reading the book.
That's true.
The NBC was a 2-night event. And it was, November and December, if I remember correctly. But it was 290. It was 182 minutes, and they cut it into 2 90-minute installments because through most other tellings of Frankenstein, it's usually about an hour and a half, or so if you think about the Universal and whatnot. So I enjoyed it. I never sat there and go, oh God, come on, get on with it. I was, from the moment we started to the moment it ends, I was in there. I was caught up. I loved it. I think your girls might find it interesting, though. Like I said, I would suggest, if you can, watch it on your own and then decide whether or not this is something you want to sit and watch with your girls.
Okay. Now, I will be remiss.
Well, I don't know. I don't know. I'm Branagh, just, I don't know. I've never been fun. I've loved his Shakespeare, but I wasn't into that. I wasn't into his Frankenstein. It was more about, oh look, I got all work. I'm working out and got muscles and stuff, and I've got my new lady. I just didn't feel the same thing for Branagh that I felt for the Del Toro, but that could be a matter of taste. If you prefer something like the Branagh, watch the Branagh. If you're a Del Toro fan, this won't disappoint you.
I would be remiss if in the mentioning of all the great Frankenstein's monsters over the years, you did not mention Robert De Niro.
I'm sorry. Here, I'll have the bird rip out my throat. That make you feel better?
Nah, that's why I keep my comments to myself here, because I honestly never really felt that most of the Frankenstein movies actually portrayed the monster correctly.
Like I said, I love what they did in Penny Dreadful, and this is a little closer to that. Though our introduction and yeah, in many ways they're kind of similar in the fact that the point at which we're introduced to the creature at the beginning of when we're introduced to Victor, we see the cruel side of him. But then as we go into the story, especially as we go into the creature side of the story, we get to say, yeah, he looked more like a homeless guy who kind of gotten womped on.
And now let's not forget, he was shorter than Dr. Frankenstein too.
Whereas, like I said, Alardi is 6'5", and his height and stuff, and he's got a presence and delivery that does give that weight to the creature. He makes that creature like, okay, I don't want to mess with you. And you feel sad for the sailors. You do. When they first come upon the creature and Victor. But like I said, I enjoyed it. But there are people who may not. And I can't, you can't make someone like a version. You couldn't see this dude begging for change on the subway. Though, if you saw this guy on the subway, I could see some homeboys going, dude, this is all I got. I got a stick of gum and $5. You want my venture card?
But that's the key thing here. It's like people don't realize how supernatural the actual creature is.
Yeah.
And nobody ever questioned, and this goes back to some of the comments. So that you wanted to get upset at me about why I was snickering and laughing. I was answering the comments more so than anything else. And one of the things that was brought up was how come he was standing up to dynamite and he could get, he can't be, die from being shot and all this other stuff. It's like, you have to understand the reanimation process. We don't know what it did. Only thing we know is that this is a creature that was essentially all the parts and everything was dead. There's no blood. There's no true nervous system that living creatures would have.
In fact,
Whatever.
In the movie, when we get to the creature's story, the creature himself comments on that, because there's a point where he wants to be dead. He learns what it is to grieve. He learns compassion, and he learns sorrow. And at that point, he didn't want to live anymore. There's a point in which the creature did wish to die, and then realizes, he says, my injuries would heal, my flesh would reform. So you could hear his sense of, there is that grief because he did not have, there was that point of this, and you get his loneliness. You come to see the loneliness in the creature. So when he comes to Victor asking for a mate, it's like, if I cannot die, at least it's not like so I can make more Frankensteins. It's, if I cannot die, give me someone to whom I can spend this immortality with. He does not want to be alone.
Well, of course, the monster survives at the end of the movie. He has to become an agent of shade in the DC universe.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, probably. But all of this still does not explain the reanimation process, because technically what Victor did was not reanimate flesh. He actually put a soul back into a construct, and that's a completely different thing.
And it is said, I've heard it, I've heard people complain, oh, Shelley didn't do enough research and stuff. One of the things they point out, because Victor's thought, and it explains the medicine at the time, and because they used to speak of humors of the body. There's a point in which the father is grilling Victor, and he's like, what are the 4 humors? And back then, the humors were blood, yellow bile, black bile, and phlegm. So you're talking about something at the point in which medical science, at that point, especially if we think of it in regards to how medical science today, medical science back then was very medieval. Especially since they were trying, a lot of them were also trying to walk away from things like tribal medicines. The old ladies the herbalists and stuff like that, they were trying to walk away from that because they felt it was too, it gave those women power, gave those country healers power that they wanted. But also because they were, because they see Victor as being, when they say Victor off the ice, they're giving him laudanum to drink. It's like, here, this will help. We now know laudanum is something you shouldn't just be, sucking down. But back then, laudanum was something that, if you were like shaken death and stuff, they would give you laudanum depending on how you were hurt. So, and it is said that there was a situation where Byron, her husband, Polydori, and a few others went to see, there was a doctor who was taking thing where they took I think it was a chicken leg and hooked it up to electrodes, and were inducing electricity into the chicken leg. It was a full leg with a thigh, and it was jumping. And she was looking at that and hearing him talk about what he believed that was doing. And, it set off her what if machine. what if we could reanimate a corpse? You know, because this thing is making dead meat, like jump and whatnot. What if you could do that? What if you could make something that was dead and bring it back to life, but not in, you know, she decided she was going to go in a different way. Instead of just grabbing any single body, they were taking bits of different bodies. And this is set, the setting for this is during the Crimean War.
Mm-hmm.
So, which made, you know, getting bodies a lot easier for Victor. But she, you know, she does kind of gloss over a lot of the science, but because there wasn't a lot of the science there, you know, being taken care of by a doctor, you know, this was still at a time where if you broke a leg, you were likely to have it cut off as opposed to set. So
that is true. That is true. But you've proven the point that I was trying to make here about the book more so than what the movies have never covered. Because of the science of that time, you have to deal more with the occult. And a lot of the process that was introduced based upon the science that was available led Victor to more occult type research. And that's what I'm saying. The body parts and stuff, everything that you brought up science-wise, that has been notated. But the thing about it is, if he just reanimated these body parts without a living, functioning brain, it serves no purpose. This was a brain that was dead. So it had to be something on the supernatural aspect where this particular creature was able to function, not just function in such a way where it understand that it had sentience, that it had its own purpose. It understood all this other stuff. And none of the Frankenstein movies ever went that direction with it to say, I'm more than what Victor did to me.
But, and I think part of because Shelley herself, you know, was not as astute on the science end of it. So
that is correct.
You know, Shelley herself was not as astute into those processes. So she, like I said, and I guess I was never bothered by it because I also read a lot of science fiction. And if you read some of the older sci-fi and compare it to, you know, there are some things that science talks about that are still ahead of us. But if you just think about just getting a rocket off the ground or things like that, there are a lot of stuff in those old Bradburys and whatever stories that don't fit. In other words, the science, they're a little bit more Asimov. Science was more hardcore science-based stuff, but a lot of the stuff, whether it's Highline or those guys, it was less about the science. They would get the basics of what the science was or proposed to be, and then take off from there. It wasn't as, you know, because when I was coming up, sci-fi was split into two. You were two types of sci-fi reader or writer. You were either the techie based, like Asimov, very science based, what is, what isn't actually possible, etc. Or you were like, you know, Anne McCaffrey or Highline or those guys where you had some basic ideas, but you were taking it off. It was less about the hardware and more about, you know, what's possible in a different way.
And that's why I try not to compare Frankenstein to other similar type movies, such as the Reanimated series, because because of the simple fact the Reanimated series dealt with it a little bit better, because there is a time frame that has to be adhered to when a person dies for him to be able to reanimate them back. If it falls outside that time frame, it's nothing that he could do without going into occult magic.
Because the brain's functions shut down, which is why, it's like, I think when I after a while, I kind of got bored with The Walking Dead, because it's like, okay, the zombies if this is supposed to be reanimated dead, they need to not be, in other words, there shouldn't be as many of them. And they need to break down faster. If you get my drift.
Well, if you felt that way about Walking Dead, then you would not like the Living Dead movies at all, because they kind of explain that in those movies, because of certain stimuli. The zombies do what they do. It's not as if they are sentient per se. They have to have some type of, if I could say, stimulus.
But it's not just the brain
for them to act.
The muscles, the joints, digestion, all of those things. They start once the body is dead, those things start breaking down. There comes a point at which, and this is why, and I learned this because I had gone to a funeral and I talked to an undertaker, and I said, well, we have to drain, because otherwise the stomachs explode. There's a lot of stuff that happens to the body in death. And the joints will freeze up. The tendons and stuff that connect muscles to bone and stuff like that starts to wear down.
Yeah, it will. All that stuff, that's scientific.
Yes, and what I'm saying is there's a
in the Walking Dead series, though, they bring that up because that's why the freshly turned can run and are 28 days later zombies. But the longer they're active, the more they break down and they become the more shambling, stereotypical Night of the Living Dead zombies. And I don't like Walking Dead. I gave up on that show when I realized Robert Kirkman is an idiot. But yeah, they did make it a point of explaining the degradation in the show. I do have to give them credit for that.
Yes,
and it is so funny, Joe, that you brought up the Reanimator, because I was sitting here thinking about the fact that one of those offshoot Reanimator movies actually tied back into Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. I just don't remember which one it was.
I can't remember it, but again, it explains the fact that Frankenstein had to be supernatural because it doesn't work on a already dead brain.
Yeah,
I think, and if I remember the Reanimator series, because I've seen interviews with those guys, I think that was kind of one of the reasons they wanted to do that, because it was like, okay, there are some parts where we get it for her time. This was revolutionary, but knowing science the way we do now and whatnot, there are things that we want to take it into this realm because we think it explains the situation better.
Yeah, it was.
It really was. Reanimator really was inspired by Frankenstein, and that's the reason why I say I try not to compare the two, because they're not exactly the same. But Reanimator explains a lot of things more scientific.
And there's a lot of stuff. It's like we think about it. Those what we call the classic monsters, Stoker's Dracula, Shelley's Frankenstein, and whatnot. Those movies served as jumping off points for a lot of what came later. People, I always think, because I think of my own journey in horror and writing stuff, loving those werewolf movies, but thinking, really? They're just these lone guys running around attacking people out of nowhere. They're just, I got tired of Lon Chaney Jr.'s, oh my God, I'm so sad, I'm a werewolf, my life is horrendous, I can't die, blah, blah, blah. It's like, dude, find a hobby. This is like three days out of the month. find a hobby. You know, this is like,
no, Joe, it was in one of those. It was either one of the comics or one of those like Beyond Reanimator movies or something, where they made a reference that the little green solution was made from notes they found in Frankenstein's journal.
Yeah.
So I don't remember which one it was because there were like a million of them. But I do remember that. I always thought it was funny.
I always
Put
thought
it
that
on the
Reddit. No. And I love me some young Frankenstein. But yes, Rex. That was the only thing about Chaney's werewolf that really got that got on my nerves. It was like, dude, get some damn therapy. Go find a therapist. Work on this, because this is the situation. This is what it is. Figure out a way to make it work. Take up 3 nights of the year, work as a guard dog for something. Hire yourself out as security somewhere where it's really needed. You know what I mean? It's just,
with the Wolfman, to me, it really depends on which legend you go based upon. If you go based upon that, there is the Alpha, the original one that's still living. I was like, okay, fine. Yeah, those are, to me, are the depressing one, because those people don't know if the original one is still alive. If the Alpha of the original pack is still alive, you're always going to be one because you don't know.
They kind of play with that in the Underworld series. They the 3 Corvinus brothers. And one was and the original Corvinus, Alexander Corvinus, their lore is there was a plague wiping out the countryside. It got to his village, and everybody was dying, except somehow his biology was such that instead of killing him, it made him immortal. But what I love about the Underworld series, I can't believe I was actually saving this for another time. But what I love about the Underworld series is, yes, they're immortal the way the elves are. Tolkien's elves are immortal. If they're allowed to go through their everyday lives, they'll just live forever. However, with both the vampires and the werewolves, put a right type of bullet in the brain, they're down, that's done. They're not coming back from that. I guess that's one of the reasons I liked that series, because it's like, okay, they're immortal until you figure out how to kill them. Not so much, but so long as they can go through their lives without anything really serious happening, yeah, they'll survive it. And I like that explanation where you got that understanding. Oh, where he played the creature? Which movie?
I think no, they were talking about. Plus, there was an episode of Route 66.
Oh, Route 66. Yeah. Okay.
But that was the whole point of like a lot of the lore about monster movies. And one of the reasons why I never saw horror as truly being gore. The core of horror to me is more of the core of writing a thriller. There is a cause and effect and a possible solution. There's always going to be a hero's journey in there in some form or some fashion. Does it work out in the end? It may or may not, but there is a journey that you're always going to go on.
It's one of the things I like about it. Is one of the things I always enjoyed about both the Ginger Snaps and the Underworld series of movies, because the Underworld series, Celine is the hero in there. And it's so funny because they so turn it on its ear that Michael becomes the help me thing. Yeah, he's a werewolf and stuff, but more often than not, he has to have his ass saved by her time and time again. She is always saving Michael. You know, he might be this badass hybrid, but in the end of the day, she's the one who has to get him out of trouble. She's
because
the one
she's
who
the
has
veteran. He's still green. That's the one thing that they don't understand about Underworld. He was green. Michael was green. He was
was not
not used
raised.
to that society.
He didn't even know anything about the Corvinus, you know, because that was the whole thing. That his descendants, and because it's, you know, and they say the Corvinus brothers, one bitten by wolf, one bitten by bat, one to walk the lonely road of humanity. So the original three brothers, two of them gained immortality. The third remained basic human. He had the genes, but he himself, unlike his father and his two brothers. And my understanding is those three brothers were triplets.
Mm-hmm.
So that William, Marcus, and I keep forgetting because they don't really mention the name of the brother who went into humanity. We know Alexander is the father. But they don't really speak as much about that brother. And that's why in the first movie, they're trying to find everybody with a name that could have come off Corvinus, which is how they find Michael, because he's a Corbin. Which is interesting. If you've ever studied episiotomy, you know how names evolve. My name came from England, you know, and may or may not have its roots within a Celtic language. So, you know, it is, but so they find Corbin, you know, and he's not the only Corbin. They found several Corbins, and Michael is the only one who actually had the gene active in his body. So when he gets bitten first by Lucian and then again by Celine, he can survive it, because before that happened, Celine, because Michael, they said, oh, you're going to try and turn him. And Michael did ask Celine about that. And she said, you know, and she says, we carry disease. You know, most people can't survive the diseases that we carry, because it's not just that they carry this bloodline, but they are also, because what made Alexander immortal was from a plague. So, you know, you can die. You know, the elders are better at turning people than, say, the younger people.
Mm-hmm.
The elders were Marcus. They were Marcus, Victor, and Amelia.
Because they were more pure blood.
Marcus turned Victor. Victor turned Amelia. Which is why she only listens to Victor. If you ever see bits with Amelia, she only listened to Victor, but she was also an elder. They're the three elder vampires, and the elders have the most power. William was the most, and what they explain is, if you've seen Rise of the Lycans, William was the first werewolf, but he didn't have to bite you. All he had to do was scratch you, and you would become a werewolf. The only problem with the werewolves that William made, and William himself, was once you turned, you couldn't turn back. It wasn't until Lucian was born that suddenly you had a werewolf who could also, he was born in human form, because that's how Victor finds him with his mother, newly born, but he's in human form. So that made Lucian one of the early werewolf elders, because he had more power than William did, because he could actually turn. Mm-hmm. And then as he got older, he got more control, because one of the guys that he turns, who we see in the first movie is his second, has gained also control, where, as Celine put it, the moon no longer holds her sway. Younger vampires, Michael, when he first gets bitten, is affected by the moon. But as he progresses through the movies, that's no longer the case. he then can choose to turn. It was one of the things I loved about the first Howling, where they did when they go into the occult store and they're asking about werewolves, and it's like, oh yeah, it doesn't take it's their first full moon maybe, but anytime a werewolf wants to get up and go, they can't. And
that's why I remember at the end of Howling, because of the last battle with the priest.
Oh, you're thinking,
or is that Howling 2?
That's Howling 2.
Yeah, because Howling 2 is like out of nowhere. It's like there was no moon or anything. It's like this priest was like ready to like, I'm going to end you. And it's like, really? Okay, fine. You going to end me? Let's do this.
That's the one that had Sybil Danning in it, and
that's
Sir Christopher
that's one
Lee.
That's one that had the greatest non-intentionally funny line ever, when Christopher Lee was talking about the pure werewolves.
Yes.
And he goes, "Silver will not harm them, only titanium." I just die every time. Because like, man, you could have made that so okay.
This was one, and understand at that point in his life,
I did not know that.
It was like, I am. Ooh, she turns 40. They kind of in the point of the Montagues and the Capulets in Shakespeare were equals in regards to their position. And Underworld,
vampires were always over vampires.
The vampires have a hierarchy, and the werewolves were the servants of the vampires. And I always think, and I always have to say, because people are like, well, the vampires aren't dead. Not in Underworld. They're living beings, which is how Victor's daughter got impregnated. Because Victor kills his own daughter because she's pregnant with a werewolf. Her child is going to be the first hybrid child. She's pregnant with Lucian's child. That's why he condemns her to death, which starts Lucian's anger at the vampires. Before then, he was serving the vampires. He was a slave. He served them, and he even tells Michael, I bore them no ill will. Why can't we all get along? But it was, so I always thought, well, you know what? They're immortal beings, but they're not undead. Whatever it is that brings about the vampirism in them also makes them sensitive to sunlight. And there are regular people who, there is a rare condition of where people who if they go out in the sunlight, they blister. They're not vampires, but they do, I think some areas it's called like the vampirism disease. It is rare, but there is a condition where there's something that their bodies lack, so that if they go out in sunlight, they start blistering. Their skin literally starts degrading in sunlight, and so they can only go out at night.
Cats and dogs are fairly natural.
I don't know. I've seen cats and dogs who've gotten along. I had my ex's father had a German Shepherd, and her mom kept cats, and that dog never had trouble. And the cats actually learned to endure the Shepherd because she couldn't have puppies. And what she would do is every once in a while, she'd pick up a cat and carry it around in her mouth, like it was her, puppy. So she'd go to the house and she'd scoop up one of the cats and carry them around and put them. Just kind of learn to go, okay, we get that.
Oh my goodness, that's a classic line from Ghostbusters.
but no, that's what Lady would do. That she would just, there are times when it's like a fit would hit her, and she'd go and she'd pick up one of the cats. I think they had like 8 cats in their house, and she'd go and she'd pick up a cat and carry it around in her mouth, and then she'd put the cat down and curl up around it like, she's my puppy. And the cat would be like, okay, fine. Eventually, she'll let me go eventually, and then I'm going to meow at some other cat. It's your turn next time. And she would do that. And she would also do things like whenever she saw me, she would come and knock me to the ground because she thought that was fun.
That's what's her joke.
Yeah, I would be if I was outside and she was outside and I'm standing there talking to somebody, and I guess it was her way of saying you're not paying enough attention to me, because she would come, and I stand like 5'1.5". The Marines gave me a half inch extra in height for encouragement, I guess. So I'm about 5 feet, and she was a black German Shepherd and a big one, you know. And at that time, I weighed what? I was still in my fighting trim, so I weighed about 115, you know. And she was a good sized dog, so I'm standing there talking to somebody. I'm just standing there. She just come over and boom, you know, so her full weight catch me around my knees, and I'm down. And she's like, "Oh, look, Elaine is my new mattress." Now I got all this dog on me.
See, there's a movie where a cat was the hero. Have you seen Cat's Eye?
Yes.
I thought
Oh,
Cat's Eye
yes.
was a horror movie.
It is. It's Stephen King's Cat's Eye.
And baby Drew Barrymore got saved by a cat from a little troll monster.
Yeah, it's I can't remember if it's one cat or several cats who, I think it's one cat, they see these things happening and they save little Drew, but it's this story is all told from the cat's, you seeing it from the cat's point of view. It's That's what it was meant to do. That's what it was meant to do. It was meant to spook you. You know, it was meant to. King did his job. King did his job. You know, you got to admit, Stephen King wrote books that turned into amazingly good movies. The one time he tried to write a movie, it was horrible, and it involved cats. It was not a great movie.
Wait. Pet Cemetery was. I thought Pet Cemetery was a book.
Sleepwalkers.
It is a book.
Okay.
And a lot of that stuff, some of the stuff like Pet Cemetery, Salem's Lot, he did base it on old legends and stuff in different areas. Because understands, King grew up in New England or whatever it was. They have all sorts of great old stories and stuff. You know, he traveled around Sleepy Hollow and all that stuff. So yeah, he knew a lot of those old legends and stuff, and some of the stuff.
I do want to say this. I am looking forward to this remake of The Running Man.
I am waiting. I'm kind of like, I was not that big on the first version.
Oh, they bastardized for bastardized the actual novel.
Okay, and I've seen the guy who was playing the role that Schwarzenegger played, and I've seen the trailers and stuff, so I get it. It's action film and all of that. That actor just doesn't move me.
Well, you have to understand that Richard is supposed to be an everyman. He's not supposed to be like action film star dude. He's supposed to be an everyman. So he kind of fits the mold of everyman, but I don't think they're going to have all the stuff that Richard had to survive for, and they're going to actually do 30 days. That was the thing that really caught my attention. It's like, oh, they're going back to the book. It wasn't about, oh, survive these 4 zones and you get this. That's like, it's 30. It's 30 days.
30 days, and nobody. And the whole point is, no one has ever made it through that 30 days. It's like the that story, The Long Walk. No one has.
Yeah, I wanted to see that one until it spooked me out about what actually happens after you fell below 2 miles per hour.
Yeah, that one gets me. But yeah, that's supposed to be another one of those where no one has actually made it long enough
to the destination.
Yeah, no one's ever made it to the destination. Nobody ever gets that far. Which is, it's definitely a horrific situation. And it to me, that it's like, oh no, because I mean, we live in a time where I could see somebody saying that and deciding that's something they want to do to people. it's like, no, I could see that becoming too much of a reality.
It's no difference than what in Escape from LA, the basketball game that the one dictator makes everybody play if they want it out.
Yeah.
It's like, what was it? 2 minutes, 7 points, and you must go the full length of the court each and every time for each basket. Every time you miss, you get shot.
Well,
if you don't get to 7, automatic death.
Rollerball had its cruelties built in as well. I think
I did not like the newer version of Rollerball. I like James Caan version.
I like the James Caan, and when I saw previews for the newer one, it's like, okay, you know what, I can do without it. They
sensationalized the game in the newer one, and that's what I didn't like about it.
Whereas the Caan version, you get a lot of what's underpinning the game. Mm-hmm. Like the original Death Race. You know, it wasn't just the race and what John Constantine, I can't remember his name. It's not Constantine. It's because his spot, Carradine.
James Carradine.
John Carradine's son. Because the guy he was also in Kung Fu. He starred in Kung Fu.
Right.
David Carradine.
David
sorry.
Carradine.
But you know, you get the races and the kills, but you also get a lot of what drives this situation. You get a lot of what's underpinning it, why this is happening, who's
there was a reason why they wanted James Caan character out of it. Yeah. There was a reason, just like with Frankenstein. There was a reason why they always had Frankenstein run this race for this one president. There was always a reason, and getting to that underlying reason was the bulk of those movies, which makes them good.
Yeah,
besides the Death Race, we got Machine Gun Joe the Terrible, aka Sylvester Stallone, in one of his very first movies.
Actually, in one of Sylvester Stallone's early movies, The Out of Towners, he got his ass kicked. By now my mind is on who the actor is, but he gets his ass kicked by an actor. It was like, dude, you should have never been in a movie where that man kicked your ass. You just shouldn't have, you know. But it's one of the funniest things, because he comes up to him and he's like, I think he asked him for for $5 or something like that. He asked him for $1, and the guy just loses it and go off on him. And I remember I'd seen it as a kid and didn't know that was Stallone. And then after I saw it again as an adult, it's like, holy crap, you know, you must have been, you know, and then it makes me understand Rocky more, because it's like he was getting those roles and realizing, I am not going, if I keep going this way, I will not have 10 years and I won't have a career. And he had to start taking things in his own hands, because he realized he wasn't going to have a career otherwise.
Again, we saw what happens. That one, Machine Gun Joe the Terrible, because he really didn't act very well as that role either, as a bad guy. I mean, he had to grow into where he's at right now, but it's like the early days of Stallone and like the early days of Schwarzenegger, they had to grow into where they were at here.
Yeah. In fact, when Schwarzenegger got chosen for Terminator, they were like, oh, this movie's going to fail. There's no way he can do it. And it's like, well, if he was all we were banking on, maybe. But they got a great actress who could play against that. You know, that fighting against the relentlessness of the machine. Here was this woman who it was definitely the fish out of water situation. How do you deal with that? Not an immutable object. It was the irresistible force. You know, and she was not an immovable object. And the guy who came to save her, Reese wasn't Mr. Big superhero either. It was very much the sort of every man, every woman situation where they had this impossible thing they had to fight against. And it was one of the things that, made Sarah Connor, especially that movie. It was like, yeah, she's not, a big muscle chickie or whatnot. She's just this everyday woman having to deal with this incredibly intense situation that she's not prepared for.
Well, I want to mention this comment here because
that
what made Schwarzenegger the perfect. That what made Schwarzenegger the perfect fit for Terminator.
But
you get Schwarzenegger that was in Hercules in New York without all the lines. He did not have to emote. He did not have to talk as much. He did not have to play, work with emotions. He could just be deadpan.
But that was not his voice in Hercules in New York. They dubbed someone else. His accent was so thick, they felt like they couldn't that audiences wouldn't be able to understand him as well. They dubbed him. Yeah, they dubbed his voice. Thing is, I didn't have a problem with Ferrigno. He was the Hulk, and he would do interviews and stuff, and it would be like, wow, this is so cool. He's the Hulk, and it wasn't like, I don't know. To me, it wasn't the problem, but I know for other roles that was a problem. He got typecast as the Hulk, and for a long time,
it was still the best Conan that we ever got on film.
I don't have Schwarzenegger as Conan. He was the best Conan. His the levitation of the women. You just can't beat that line. I love that first Conan. I thought some of the later Conans were just first Conan was more on story. And the later ones were just like, less on story. It's more about the action and less about the story. And so I wasn't into, I think I've seen just about all of them. The one he did with, what's her name? The musician. God, I'm having dementia attacks right now. Things are escaping me.
See, I did not see that version of Conan with Jason Momoa.
I saw parts of it. I liked him as Aquaman, but he was
perfect for Aquaman.
Yeah, I thought he did a really good job on Aquaman. I just didn't feel him as Conan. But I'm also, it's like you get used to, it's like the Superman thing. You get used to a specific actor in the role, and that becomes that character in your head. As a kid, it was George Reeves, and then Christopher Reeves, and then after that, when they got the Roth boy, I just was like, he could have done something other than this. I didn't feel his Superman, and I haven't watched another Superman since. Okay,
so I was about to say, it's like you might be right with that because he wasn't a fit for Superman, but
I've seen him in other things. I saw him.
He was a perfect fit for Ray Palmer, the Atom.
Okay, and
he played the Atom in the the Arrowverse.
What's that series they used to have on NBC? The guy who was the spy. He didn't start out to be a spy, but he ends up becoming a spy. And Roth is in that series towards the end of it. And John is in my room, and I can't walk away and make him tell me what the name of that. Chuck, that's it. Chuck.
The so-called sleeper agent. Yeah.
Yeah. The last season and a half or so of Chuck, he's in it. He's good. He does a really good job in Chuck. I enjoyed watching him in Chuck. However, like I said, I kept feeling that he wasn't my Superman.
He wasn't Superman for a lot of people, just like this new guy in this last Superman movie he wasn't a good fit for Superman.
it's like, and I will admit, I wasn't feeling Cahill. I just wasn't feeling. I didn't even bother watching Cahill. I didn't watch The Witcher originally because I just didn't feel him. I'd seen the Alona Holmes um, series where little Bobby Brown girl was in it, and it's like, okay, you know what? He's not the main character. He's more of a side joke. Okay, I can deal with him in the series.
Now,
Millie Bobby Brown, that's her name.
yeah.
But I just, if it had been a Sherlock Holmes movie, I wouldn't have watched him. I sit there and it's like, yeah, he's attractive, but beyond being attractive, I'm just not feeling it. And I didn't watch The Witcher at first because I also didn't like the way they would describe him. He's got bad manners, he smells of urine, but I guess I'll go have sex with him. Ew. Enola Holmes, yes. I love that. I love those movies with her. And it was like, okay, he's in the movies, it's a necessary evil. Turn down the sound. Is he off? Turn it back up.
I'm glad we're specifying here. Zachary Levi did play somebody called Shazam, but he definitely wasn't Captain Marvel.
He was in Shazam.
Yes,
he
wasn't Captain Marvel.
He played the older version of Billy Batson, and I'm giving him a pass on that because he
played the Jeff Johns version, Billy Batson.
Yeah, he got to be goofy, and he does do goofy pretty well.
Zachary Levi makes goofy fun. There are some people when they do goofy, it's like, child, you want to walk up to the producer and smack him on the head and go, wow.
I'd rather watch the old black and white Captain Marvel serials where he had a Tommy gun than I would the Zachary Levi movies.
Well, no, I would say this. I would watch the Zachary Levi movies over what Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson did for Black Adam. I can't. Oh my goodness, Black Adam was bad. That was bad.
Stop! You're making my brain bleed. Stop.
Now, see, this was my thing. When they first announced years and years and years ago, Dwayne Johnson was going to be Black Adam, I said, if he actually acts like Black Adam, he would be great at it. But he didn't. He played Dwayne Johnson cosplaying as Black Adam. And that was a problem. If he would have approached that as a serious role,
I think
and he would have taken it and embraced the character, he would have been great at it because he's actually a good character actor. But he was like, I'm Dwayne Johnson.
It is two things that doom him for that character. You mentioned one. The second thing, he actually did his homework and he refused to go down the route of the whole Shazam mythos. He's like, I should not have to fight. I should not have to fight like a 13-year-old, 14-year-old as, my main, protagonist. It's like, don't you understand the legend behind that? Technically, you were the first champion. You did his job. The Wizards turned against you for standing up for conduct. There were things that you could teach Billy that Billy could never understand. But it's like, no, my ego, the Rock's ego can't take that. That's why the movie failed, because you went off.
You made a bajillion dollars pretending that people threw you at ropes and you couldn't stop running. You can fight Captain Marvel.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's something
before we get too much deeper into it. I did have a book to review at the end, and I wanted to give
we also had the Shazam stuff to also do too.
But I also wanted to. Oh no, I've really enjoyed tonight. It was fun, but I also wanted to give a shout out about the comic shop I went to today.
Yeah.
So I just want to make sure we have time for that at the end. But yeah, we need to talk about Shazam too.
Okay.
Okay, so we're going to go into the Shazam stuff. It's like, yeah, because that's what The Rock wanted to have happen, because he did not want to.
go up
He did not
against
want to
Superman.
fight. He did not want to fight Captain Marvel. Now, there's a difference between comic books and movies and everything, and The Rock wanted to be The Rock. And I believe that was one of the few things that he said after coming out of the Black Adam movie was one of his biggest mistakes, because his ego wouldn't allow it to happen.
And he tried to
he only realized
he tried to overrule James Gunn and realized his politics weren't that powerful.
And yes, and they did well. They wasted Pierce Brosnan as
Dr. Fate.
Dr. Fate.
No, I'm trying to think who was the character that wielded the Naboo helmet, who could actually fight, who actually had the mental capacity to fight Naboo. Remember that.
Kent Nelson?
Remember, he's not Dr. Fate until he puts on the helmet,
and then he gets possessed. Yeah.
Yeah, Kent Nelson.
Thank you. He made a good Kent Nelson.
Whereas Nathan Fillion, and this is the last I'll say, Nathan Fillion should have did the first.
Yeah, that is correct,
movie.
Queen.
He should have did the first Green Lantern movie. It was, and the fans wanted him in that first Green Lantern movie. And Ryan Reynolds just was not the right fit. He should have.
Well, the problem was they wanted Ryan Reynolds to be Hal Jordan, but Ryan Reynolds was not Hal Jordan.
He was Kyle Rayner.
Yeah,
he could have been Kyle Rayner, and it would have worked.
If they'd have had Fillion as Jordan,
he made great
and then Reynolds as Rayner, that would have been the perfect casting. They screwed the pooch on that, And yes, I will say that. Nathan Fillion, I will say it to your face. And I feel sorry, because I'm one of those people who actually wrote to DC and said, hey, y'all should consider Nathan Fillion. And then when I found out you were doing the later one, it's like, no, that's a mistake. They should have
make a good Guy Gardner.
Yeah, he would have made an amazing. He voiced that character. John, my youngest, wanted to see him in that because he voiced that character in the animated. So he was, that's why a lot of people really wanted to see him, because he was doing the voiceover work for that character.
That's a good question that I don't know if anybody in Hollywood actually answered.
If you're going to go with that, well, why didn't they start with Alan Scott's Green Lantern?
Because the mythos changes.
Why didn't they?
The mythos would change.
If we're going, but we could do that all day, though. Why didn't?
Yeah, that's true. But then again, it's like we, you go from the ring being weak to the color yellow to the ring being weak to wood, or more specifically, shillelaghs.
And Solomon Grundy.
Yeah, and Solomon Grundy. Yep.
Having to run away from leprechauns. I would have paid to see that in the theater. I would have paid to see that in the theater. The Green Lantern running his ass away from leprechauns, Yep, especially if you could have gotten like Sean Astin to play leprechaun.
No, you just gave me the idea for Leprechaun in the Hood 3.
Oh my goodness.
Leprechaun.
I try not to think about movies like that. Leprechaun in the Hood. Oh,
hey man, those are family favorites.
I watched the first Leprechaun and loved it, but then one of the problems with those movies is they become very formulaic, and it's like, okay, it's why I lost interest in Freddy. I lost interest in Jason, because they become it's like, oh, okay, do the kill, make the line. It's like it's just sort of like it's the same movie. They just keep changing the actors.
Well, after Dream, what was like
Dream Warriors, I think, was one of the last of the Nightmare on Elm Streets that was, to me, any good.
Well, then they introduced that there was somebody else that was a Dream Master. And
there was the one where it was his daughter.
I think it was after 3, because Dream Warriors I remember very clearly. Then there was another one after that said that there was one that was in that city that was more powerful in their dreams than Freddy could ever be. And that's when they destroyed the whole myth.
Blonde-headed chick that there's a blonde-headed chick who was fixing to have a baby, and the baby could control the dreams. But part 4 is the one that had one of the greatest scenes ever in it, where he turned a girl into a cockroach and had her in a roach motel and crushed it and said they check in, but they don't check out.
Mm-hmm.
That was cinema right there. Just like Leprechaun 4 was Leprechaun in space. And I watched.
Okay, so 4
I watched Leprechaun. It went Leprechaun 1, Leprechaun 2, Leprechaun 3, who's in Las Vegas, Leprechaun 4 in space, and then Leprechaun 5 and 6 were Leprechaun in the Hood and Leprechaun Back to the Hood. I watched Leprechaun 4. I watched Leprechaun 4 specifically because I wanted to know how he went from the end of Leprechaun 3 into outer space. And you know the answer to this question? He was just there. He was there. That was it.
He was just that.
He just showed up and was like, "Hey, what's up?"
It was so weird that I'm trying to figure out all things that they could have used to make that one component. Why did they have to use their gold? Why did they have to use his gold? It's like if you would have used anybody else's gold, y'all would have been safe. But no, you have to use his gold. It's like
that brings the Leprechaun. That's right. Anytime you use part of his whole hoard, you know.
Yeah, and Leprechaun in the Hood was all Ice-T's fault.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing I liked about Jason X, which is the one where Jason is in space, is where they're trying to slow him down so that they can try to get to safety. And their tech guy creates a hologram, and it's like the 2 teenage girls. Oh, we're about at 1%. It says you might come join us.
Do you want to smoke drugs and have premarital sex? We love premarital sex.
And he takes up the sleeping bag
in a sleeping bag and beats him on a
one is in his sleeping bag on the ground, and he's picked the sleeping bag with the other one up, and he's beating one with the other. And there's that point at which I guess what little brain he's got left working goes, wait a minute, I keep beating them that they don't die. Maybe something's not right here. Because you hear, ooh.
But it fits the if I can say the mythos of Jason.
But it's so
because I remember when he was in Manhattan, and that was one of the things that they kept saying. It's like, yeah, he's immortal, but he's not as strong because he's too far away from the lake.
I can't remember which Black comic did it. I know it wasn't. I know it wasn't Freddie Murphy, but some Black comic was talking about that and said, you know what should have happened is somebody should have rolled up, gave him a bottle of Coke 45 and a joint. God, you need to just chill out. You know what I mean? The rest of the movie would have just been Jason sitting on the curb, you know. You know, it would have been like they'd have just chilled Jason out. It's like, oh, okay.
I'm sorry. I need a moment to recover because that scene from Jason X is probably like the greatest thing I've ever seen in my life. I'm about to die.
I saw that and I just cracked up. It was like, oh, you've got to be kidding me. Really?
You have to understand he's so used to like, okay, if I'm not using my machete, I'm strong enough to kill people with blunt force trauma. And he's in space so far away from the lake that he's up there like, well, it's like, how come they're not dead yet? Well.
But you don't understand. In that same movie, the guy's supposed to be one of the smartest people there, actually gives him his machete. See, he just wanted his machete back. And then he has this look of surprise when he gets machete.
A lot of people.
That's like doing a Jaws
A lot of
movie and
people.
going, well, his shark's just hungry.
Yeah. Now, those last three Friday the 13th movies, Jason Goes to Hell, Jason Takes Manhattan, Jason Goes to Hell, and Jason X, are the ones that most people crap all over for being terrible. They're my favorites.
They were good because the mythos held true. He depowers, but he's still immortal. He's more immortal away from the lake, but at the same time, he's not as powerful.
Freddy versus
my
Jason
favorite part about Jason Goes to Hell is that they made Jason Goes to Hell an undercover Evil Dead crossover. Because seriously, the Necronomicon from Evil Dead was in the movie.
Oh, okay.
They killed him at the end of it with the same knife that Ash used in Evil Dead 2. And they didn't say it where they could get sued for it, but they pretty much let you know that the reason Jason's immortal is he's a Deadite.
Ah, okay.
And the only reason they didn't go any further is because Sam Raimi sent them a letter and said, I know what you're doing. Stop.
You better leave my IP alone.
Yeah, but
yeah, the Raimis, the Raimis are very big on their IP. It's like if we want to do something in our IP, that's on us. But you are not messing with our IP. Excuse me.
And we got sidetracked again. Let's do Shazam.
Yeah, okay. We want to do Shazam here. It's like they had an android Jason X. Why didn't she take care of Jason? Because what we just said, the mythos is that you can hurt him, but you can't kill him. The only way you can get close to killing him in his own movies is to actually drown him. To really
she did kill him because she shot him up real good, but he fell into the infirmary and all the nanites went into him, so he became
Super Jason.
Super Jason. Because I was about to say they kicked him out the ship in Jason X, and he survived it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But they gave that. That was the whole gimmick behind Jason X. It was called the evil upgrade because he got filled up with all the little nanites and stuff.
Yeah, they rebuilt him.
Yeah, then he beat them two holograms into the tree. It was great.
Sorry.
Okay, so now let's deal with tonight's feature.
Elaine broke me.
I don't know what brought us to Jason and Freddy, because now I want to watch Freddy versus Jason. I really do. I have it over here somewhere. I want to watch it.
That movie is beyond silly.
But it makes sense. It makes so much sense, and they pay proper respect to both sides.
Yes, but it's still silly as all get out.
I just was just like amazed about how methodical they were at the end to get Freddy into the real world at the camp.
Yes.
And I'm up there like, oh crap, Freddy's about to die a horrible death.
Can we see Shazam?
Okay. All right, so we're about to see the intro and part of an episode of Shazam here. And let me just say, when I did my research again for Shazam, his whole world is just full of a-holes. It's just like, wow, why in the 1960s did these animators create Arabian life in such a way where it was just like everybody was just horrible to everybody? I just don't know.
Because they could get away with it.
But again, the story pretty much states what it is.
Let's go.
Inside a cave off the coast of Maine, Chuck and Nancy find a mysterious chest containing the halves of a strange ring. When joined, the ring forms the word Shazam! And with this magical command, they are transported back to the fabled land of the Arabian Nights. Here they meet their genie, Shazam. Shazam presents them with Kabubi, a magical flying camel. Shazam will serve them whenever they call, but he cannot return them home until they deliver the ring to its rightful owner. And thus begins their incredible journey. Mercy, Master! Spare us! Do not punish us! You know my reward for thieves who return empty-handed.
Yes, Shazam did meet Space Ghost. Actually, Space Ghost went into their Arabian time.
As for you, a long-necked baboon will be your fate. And you, the greedy one, shall be what you most resemble. Begone into the shadows, vile creatures. Joseph, you know what will happen if you return empty-handed. I shall not fail, Master. Bashala! A flying camel. What a prize for my master.
There's a city down there, Chuck.
We'll land outside. We don't want Kabubi attracting too much attention.
A white girl not dressed properly in will attract enough attention.
Shall be mine.
Why would his master want a flying camel when he's got a flying carpet? One of them poops a lot less.
Behold!
That's not so much.
You, young man, you can do better.
Darn right. Hand me the cloak, Nancy.
Chuck! That's the cloak of invisibility Shazam gave us.
Don't worry. I just want to show him he isn't so great.
Oh,
Watch
goodness.
this, Mr. Great Magician. Can you top that?
Child's play. Akbar does all.
Akbar does all. That's pretty much what, pretty much a taste of what Shazam is here.
And I did not know about, well, actually, considering at the time it was made, yeah, it in certain Middle Eastern countries, women were allowed modern dress back then.
Mm-hmm.
About the late 60s through up until the late 70s, women were allowed modern dress. So yeah, they could get away with that because I was sitting there, wait a minute. And it's like, okay, that's right. Women would have been allowed because otherwise, she
would have stood out all the time.
Well, the fact that you see a bunch of men and she's the only female in that group.
Well, you have to understand, she was with Chuck, which according to their law is allowable because she's being escorted.
Yes, she's being escorted, but there are no other women being escorted.
Mm-hmm.
So they were a lot of times putting her in situations where she was the only female there.
It does. That cloak comes in handy, but that's the thing with the whole thing with Shazam. It's like Shazam would give them certain tools to use, and they would sometimes I question like how Chuck used it there. And Nancy was right. Nancy was like, don't use the cloak.
Don't show off like that. This
right.
Because it brings attention to them in a way that they shouldn't be getting attention. They're already standing out of the crowd because there are two white kids standing in a group of Middle Easterners.
Not only that, what they're carrying is like one of the most powerful beings in that realm or in that land too. If they realize that they have both halves of the Shazam ring. That was the thing that people they don't want any attention to, because once they realize that they have both halves.
But what I'm saying is
reuse
at a point when it would have been smarter to keep it on the down low.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't they reuse Shazam's animation for Super Friends? He was the villain in one of the episodes.
They redrew it, but I believe that they used the same keyframes. I believe that they used the same keyframes, but they redrew
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, it was Hanna-Barbera, so you're going to get a lot of that.
A lot of rinse and repeat, just like whatchamacallit.
Because Disney was
Chuck and Nancy is no different than the two kids on Space Ghost.
yeah.
Mhm.
Well, no, they're better behaved.
No, I'm talking about animation wise, as far as
Yeah,
keyframes.
animation.
Reusing the keyframes for the animation.
Yeah. But I was about to say they're a little better behaved. Chuck it. I remember watching it and thinking he's such a hothead.
Mm-hmm. He's a very big hothead.
And he never seems to learn because the lessons don't stick with him. You know, the minute they're out of danger, he's back to who he is. It doesn't really it's always her going, Chuck, really shouldn't, and him going, no, and it's like, you don't know better. You know, you don't know better. You really should, kind of back it up there, darling. But it's like, yeah, they get in danger. He humbles out for like half a second, and then the next episode it's like it's nothing ever happened because it doesn't change him at all. There's no, it was like, and I guess that was, I guess I found that very sort of frustrating with his character. I was also a kid at this time, so
Yep, that is true. There was an episode that they visited a planet that was ancient Arabia. Yep. I believe that the people there were more alien-like. I mean, I was like, I got most of the Super Friends stuff over here. I just don't have legendary. I don't have the legendary stuff nor like the superpower stuff.
Okay.
But I have like
you have the Global Guardian stuff.
No, I don't have Galactic Guardians or anything like that.
Galactic Guardians.
Well, we've got 17 minutes left, so we should give Cliff his spot.
Yeah, yep.
Because I never intended my Del Toro thing to take as much time as it did.
We got people talking, and that's what happens here.
Yeah. So we're here in Birmingham on our homeschool field trip. We went to art museum today, and we're going to the natural history. I mean not natural history. What is it called? The Civil Rights Institute tomorrow. But we stopped by Sasquatch Comics and Toys here in lovely Birmingham, Alabama. And I'm going to get all the good out of the way first.
Okay.
The good of the place, it was huge. They just had room after room, and it was different stuff. Like they had a G.I. Joe room and a Transformers room and a DC room and a Marvel room, and there were just toys and statues and figures, you name it. And then they went to the comic room, and the comic room was huge, and it had table after table of back issues. Some of them were organized, and some of them weren't. That bothers me. But good selection, great selection. I could probably spend all day going through the back issues. No current books. That's all they specialize in is back issues. Lots of back issues. Dug through them. I got just because I don't have good copies of it, but I found some better ones. I picked up all of the Legion of Three Worlds by Jeff Johnson, George Perez, just because I love the artwork in it, and Superboy Prime's one of my favorite villains. I got some of the old Amalgam comics, including Challengers of the Fantastic, because why not? And a whole bunch of Batman family to finish off my collection. And the good thing about it, I went up, they were all, I got them, went up there, the guy was really nice. All of my books he took out of the bags and boards they were in and put them in fresh, brand new bags and boards.
Ooh.
Awesome. I was like, this is really cool. He was really nice, and he was knowledgeable about other comic shops around here I might want to check out. Then's where the bad started.
Oh no.
He was looking at all the Batman family books I bought. And he goes, oh, these came out of my personal collection. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. And then he held this one up with Batgirl fighting this particular character on it. And he goes, huh. I didn't know there was a girl Joker. Just said it came out of your personal
Oh, sorry.
collection.
If my forehead slapped with that loud, I'm sorry.
I was like, yeah, I know who the Joker's daughter is. And so I explained it to him. And he goes, wow, you know some stuff about these comics here. I was like, yeah, well, you know. And then the big thing that really got on my nerves, almost made me walk out. Every one of these comics in the back issues, he went on eBay to look up the prices of them.
Okay, yeah, I would be like, nope, I don't want them. I'm gone. I'm out.
Yeah,
I would have been out right then and right there.
No prices on his books. No explanation for it. He said he had a dollar bin, but you couldn't find the dollar bin. And so he was going through taking pictures of each one of my comics that I had. And he goes, oh, well, this one's such and such on here. I'll do this for it. I'll do that for it. It's like, uh-huh. So it ended on a sad note, but it was a really nice shop. And if you're looking for something specific in the Birmingham, Alabama area or within driving distance of here, they might have it because they had some G.I. Joe figures from the 80s I forgot they made, and they had all of the new reissue, like G.I. Joe Classified series, Star Wars out the wazoo. But go in there knowing you're going to pay more than it's worth. Yes, I had to tell him the Joker's daughter joined the Teen Titans for a little while and became the Harley Quinn. And he looked at me and then looked it up on eBay and about snatched him over his desk. But it was a nice store. I was a little disappointed that when we drove up to it, and instead of having a statue of the Sasquatch, he had a stormtrooper. But you know, Bigfoot's kind of hard to find in Alabama. I understand. So, Sasquatch Comics. It was a nice place. Now,
and
to see if I can give.
Maybe he had the stormtrooper because it's more, you know, depending on who buys from him, it's more immediately identifiable as, oh, okay, that's where you go for the comic books. I could be wrong.
In Alabama, if we in Alabama, he could put anything out there, and I still wouldn't know what the place is.
Okay.
And now, specifically to continue my review of this series, and probably give Joe a stroke in the process. New History of the DC Universe, issue 3.
Oh, you got it.
I got 3 and 4 at the same time, but I haven't done 4 yet. I wanted to read 3 and review it, and then we'll do 4 another time.
Okay.
Now, this one, issue 3, covers, and this one I think they probably should have broke this up into more issues because book 3 begins at the end of Crisis on Infinite Earths with the emergence of Wally West as the Flash, goes all the way through everything that happened in the DC universe up until Final Crisis and the rebirth of Barry Allen. That's like double the amount of stuff they covered in both the first issues.
Wow.
There's so much junk. They crammed all in here. So again, Barry Allen is the narrator of the story. And again, it starts off to very first thing is following his death in the Crisis, Wally West becomes the Flash, the emergence of Booster Gold. This is where it gets really funny to me. Kryptonian Kara Zor-El, aka Power Girl, was the sole survivor of a parallel universe destroyed in the Crisis, ignoring all that other stuff they ever said about her being Atlantean, this, that, and the other. She's always been the Earth 2 Supergirl. And a young Billy Batson was granted the ability to transform into the magical Captain by speaking the magical word Shazam.
Well, that's what they made him now. He is not Captain Marvel. He's just the Captain. That's more.
Yeah. And he's in his new
2025. That's 2025 version of him.
What?
Yes, but this is directly after Crisis on Infinite Earths. Billy Batson was the Captain. Justice League International, Justice League Europe. And this one is a little bit, I know why they put all these together on this page because they were all government agencies. But Apparently, in the new history of the DC universe, Amanda Waller created Checkmate and the Suicide Squad at the same time.
That is kind of sort of true, because Suicide Squad existed while she was the White Queen of Checkmate.
Mm-hmm.
So they both existed at the same time, but to word it the way that they did, it's just like, okay, meh.
And Peacemaker and Sarge Steel are brought up on here also as being part of Task Force X. And the one that
so they're bringing a lot of the more modern stuff, the stuff that came just before rise of DC.
Yeah, and this one I kind of question. I wasn't 100% sure of. General Wade Island. They're already saying this far back in their history he could transform into his version of the Shaggy Man. But I don't remember that happening until Grant Morrison's JLA. But they stuck it in here too.
See, they're playing games with timelines and continuity.
Oh,
they're
and
blending the continuity. They're blending the continuity as far as what is actually considered continuity now, as opposed to
continuity back when it made sense.
Exactly.
And I forgot before the introduction of the Justice League International. That's when the John Byrne Legends mini event happened. So it went from Legends, Justice League International, and so on.
Wait, so if Legends happened before Justice League International, that would have meant that technically Checkmate would have been in existence by then, because that's when Suicide Squad actually happened, was in Legends.
And this is what was interesting to me. There is no mention whatsoever when they're talking about all of this with the reemergence of the Justice League. No mention of Wonder Woman appearing in man's world. So the George Perez Wonder Woman didn't happen. Well, she's still Diana from pre-crisis. According to this new history, the pre-crisis Wonder Woman stuck around.
Right. Well, that's the question. Was it still Hippolyta at this time? Because that was George Perez that was John Byrne said in the Perez era, that it was Hippolyta that was a part
in this
of
new
the
history
Justice
now,
League and JSA.
In this new history, Hippolyta was in the JSA, and then Diana came to man's world. And there's no mention of her dying in the Crisis, because if you remember Crisis on Infinite Earth, she got reverted back to clay, and that's where the George Perez Wonder Woman started. That's gone, according to this. So the George Perez Wonder Woman didn't happen. That's what we've got.
Well. Now my question now is, whatever happened to Earth 2 Wonder Woman? Because Hippolyta died in Earth 2, and Diana was the only one that was there, and Diana eventually became a god.
I'm not sure, because the Earth 2 Wonder Woman, her ghost showed up in Infinite Crisis, but I don't think they don't mention her anywhere else, so I'm not sure. The next thing to talk about is that weird Doom Patrol that had like 87 members to it, that was led by Robot Man.
No, it was led by Celsius, who eventually stepped down and Robot Man took over. That's for all Volume 2. That's all Volume 2.
Yeah, well, in this new history, Cliff Steele, Robot Man, brought together the latest short-lived incarnation of Doom Patrol, and then Celsius is listed as a member.
See, selective writing.
Yeah,
selective writing.
This is Celsius, some serious retcon. This is some serious retcon.
Yeah, Celsius was the person who brought the Doom Patrol back together. She found the damaged Cliff Steele and gave him a different body that was left behind by Calder, and put him in there for he could survive. Celsius led that team until she stepped down.
Right.
Wow.
Well, now, and then for some reason, this just makes me laugh. Gnort got his own section as him arriving from Sector 68 was a big deal. So, for you Justice League International fans who loved you some Gnort, he is a major part of the new DC universe. And then the next two they have listed kind of caught me off guard, but mainly because I don't remember this one that much. Left without a partner when the Crisis claimed his brother, Don, Hank Hall found a new dove in Dawn Granger.
That is correct. Because Dove became female.
I could not remember if the female Hawk came along at the same time as the female Dove.
No.
What I could remember.
No. Female Hawk came a lot later.
Okay. And then this one's interesting because this throws a lot of stuff up in the air. And another Starman entered the playing field when his predecessor, the late Prince Gavin of the planet Ranelite, was reincarnated on Earth in the body of magazine editor Will Payton. So they're going back to the the 1994 Jack Knight Starman story of connecting those two Starmen together.
Yeah,
because in Scott Snyder's Justice League, Will Payton was his own character. So now they went back to the James Robinson version of where Will Payton came from. So that was kind of interesting to me because they'd spent so long separating them when Scott Snyder took over Justice League and was leading up to Metal. So, and then they talk about the the invasion event when the Dominators and the Khunds took over Earth and did away with everyone's superpowers.
Oh, yeah. Something that was short-lived.
Which is funny because I double-checked. They skipped the Millennium event in here. For those of you youngsters who don't know what the Millennium event was, the Guardians of the Universe from Oa and the Zamarians decided it was time for them to go make babies. So they were going to leave the universe, and they picked a new Guardians of the Universe. And for some reason, they all had to be Earthlings. But you found out that during Millennium, there were Manhunter sleeper agents on Earth. And all of this nonsense took place just because the Guardians wanted to go get some. All that didn't happen. Apparently, it did not happen.
And who they want, it was just who they wanted to mate with was just such an odd pairing between them too.
Well, none of it happened.
We're talking
so
those big headed. We're talking the big headed, the little big headed dudes, right?
The little blue guys, yeah. They wanted to go get nasty with the Zamorians, who were the ones who made the Star Sapphires.
Okay.
Who kind of looked like the Q-tip aliens from Star Wars.
Yeah. I mean, it was just like, you look at the two groups and be like, why?
No. Oh.
And so that didn't happen.
And it explains the Star Sapphires 100% because the Star Sapphires were that way because of the simple fact that the Guardians would never commit to them.
Yeah. And so after we didn't have Millennium and we had Invasion, they bring up one of my favorite short-lived wacky comics from the early 90s, Legion with Viral Docs, who was Brainiac 2, not Legion of Superheroes, L period, E period, G period, I period, O period, N period.
Yeah.
Yeah. So apparently that happened during Invasion. And then they skip over a lot and go right into I think it was called the Cosmic Odyssey, where Darkseid teamed with a bunch of the heroes from Earth to stop the living embodiment of the anti-life equation. but the main thing that they brought up from that was apparently what most people believe to be the turning point or the focal point of John Stewart, Green Lantern's life, the destruction of the planet Zhangxi. And then we have to go back to Gotham City because, of course, we do. And apparently,
revolves about Batman.
And then one right after the other, Joker paralyzed Barbara Gordon and then killed Jason Todd. And right after that happened, the new Helena Bertinelli Huntress appeared, and Tim Drake figured out that Bruce Wayne was Batman, so he became Robin. So all that happened, boom, 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 boom.
Wait.
Rip Hunter's Tom Masters.
Hold on. So they de-age Helena at this point.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Then they bring up for Rip Hunter's and his linear men are brought up. Then they talk about Wave Rider, the other time traveler, because that ties directly into Monarch, who ended up being a turned evil Hawk, which is why I think I got confused if he was around when Dawn Granger was, because I knew he turned evil soon. And then this one just caught me way off guard. The introduction of Jesse Quick is in here with all of the stuff about time travelers instead of being with the reemergence of the JSA.
Wait. Which Jesse Quick? Are we talking about female Jesse Quick or male Jesse Quick?
Female Jesse Quick, the daughter of Liberty Bell and Johnny Quick.
Okay, the original Johnny Quick.
Yeah, so I don't know why they put her there. I guess they didn't have anywhere else to put her. And then we go into the emergence of the Ray, the old Golden Age character that I don't remember his real name either. Mm-hmm. And back to Gotham City, because of course we do. Renee Montoya joined the GCPD, and Stephanie Brown became the Spoiler. And as all that was happening, Doomsday showed up and Superman died. And then we go into the Return of Superman, and we have all four of the pretenders to Connor Kent, Henry Irons, the Eradicator. And this one's interesting to me just because my oldest daughter was reading the New 52 Supergirl. They have gone back to Hank Henshaw as Cyborg Superman, because for a while, Kara's father was supposed to be the Cyborg Superman in New 52. So they've gone back to it being Hank Henshaw. And of course, the destruction of Coast City, Superman comes back to life. They go into Nightfall. Bane breaks Batman's back. Azrael became Batman. They skip over the part where Dick Grayson took over the mantle for a little while. And then this one caught me off guard as being interesting because this seems way out of place in time. The U.S. government teamed up with Dakota City's Alva Industries to create a new generation of superpowered soldiers. Their test run, however, backfired dramatically when tear gas laced with Alva's proprietary Q juice was used to subdue a group of young protesters. The resultant Big Bang killed many of them, but those who survived the Bang babies, if you will, were granted various super abilities and began turning Dakota City upside down as new heroes and villains.
Right. And that's the milestone universe being solidified now in the DC universe. That's how they're explaining it, which to me is the worst way to explain it. They could just say, no, this had nothing to tie into a particular organization. You could just say it just happened in Earth.
And then they go into great detail about the Dakota verse. They've got of course, Static. Then they go into the Blood Syndicate and all the superpowered gangs in Dakota. Icon and Rocket, which I always forget. Icon is like an immortal alien and every time I read that, it makes me pause, but I know that's what it is. And the emergence of hardware, and
Right.
that's all of the milestone. And I'm kind of shocked they put it that early in this new timeline.
Yeah,
And no
that is a messed
mention
up
of the
name
Wildstorm universe.
for those that got hit by that gas. That was a messed up name
Yeah,
for it. I know it's a funny name, but yeah, bang
yeah,
babies. They
yeah.
call it the Big Bang, so they're
And,
all bang babies.
yeah, and then they have the Tommy Monahan Hitman character arrived. Hal Jordan became Parallax. Cal Reiner showed up. Bart Allen came back from the future. And this one is another one that I don't remember it being this far back, but it might be. Natasha Irons becomes Steel.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
And of course,
Again, the uncle Jeremy's dropped the moniker of Steel. She was in the process of becoming an engineer herself, hanged around Jeremy for so long, and she saw the need for Steel again, so she made her own armor and became and took up
right.
his mantle.
Yeah, but it's real funny here because they make it a point to say at the end of the little piece about Natasha, together both of them began operating under the name Steel.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember at the time that she became Steel, he had kind of retired, but they're saying he apparently never retired.
Well, that I
And then at
don't
the
know. I
bottom,
don't know if he retired
mm,
officially as not being Steel anymore, but I know there has been newer books that has stories with him being Steel again.
right.
Because
And
I
then at the
think
very
at one
bottom of this
time
page,
Natasha almost worked for Lex Luthor. I remember that storyline that she
yeah,
almost became work for Lex Luthor for a
yeah, that
time
was in
frame.
52.
Right.
She became part of the short-lived, revitalized Infinity Inc.
Mm-hmm.
And then here at the bottom of the page, for a very good purpose, for the way the book's laid out, Grant Emerson, the grandson of Al Pratt, the original Atom, becomes Damage.
Right.
And if any of you know your DC history, you'll know that's important because the very next page is 0 Hour,
Mm-hmm.
Crisis in Time. And we talk about Hal Jordan being evil, but we make sure we make it a point that Hal's not evil. He was taken over by Parallax. And they still have it where Green Arrow, Oliver Queen killed him with an arrow, and Damage from the last page restarts the universe with his damage powers. Then we go just real quick. It goes through the new heroes who showed up: Jack Knight, Starman, Connor Hawk, Green Arrow. And this one is a little bit funny again to me. This, after 0 Hour, is where Barbara Gordon became Oracle and formed the Birds of Prey. I remember her
What?
being Oracle
Wait.
way
Hold
back
on.
in.
Barbara did not form Birds of Prey. Dana did. Dinah did, I should say. Dinah formed.
Well,
Barbara did not
apparently
have the
now
resources at that time, and plus she was paralyzed, so there was no way in the world that she could gather all of them up.
well, I remember she became Oracle way back in the Ostrander Suicide Squad, but
Mm-hmm.
now apparently it happened after 0 Hour. And that's when she formed the Birds of Prey with Dinah. But they make it a point of saying her partnership with a field agent and other crime fighters. So Barbara started it, is the way they're wording it here. And then they throw in at the end Hal Jordan dying again during the Final Night crossover, for any of you who remember that.
Right. Again, I disagree with that statement about Birds of Prey. Dinah started it because Barbara was still being Oracle for all of the Batman family. She did not deal with most of anything dealing with any other city in the DC universe. It was Dinah who pulled in Barbara to say, hey, I'm calling in this favor. I need for you to help me find all of these other like-minded individuals before we could make this group. And then that way, I will make certain I will help you with Gotham City as long as you're able to help me with all these other covert missions that I need to go on.
Right. And then the marriage of Clark Kent and Lois Lane.
Yeah. Finally, the official marriage.
The official marriage. And then the Grant Morrison JLA and everything that happened there. Peter David's Young Justice.
Short-lived.
Yeah. DC 1 Million happened.
Yeah, I want to forget that.
And the introduction of the Android Hourman, which I enjoyed the Android Hourman, but yeah, DC 1 Million was like, stop letting Grant Morrison be Grant Morrison. And then now, this is where they just stick a lot of stuff together. Following a massive earthquake, the U.S. government cut off Gotham City, bombing every bridge and sealing every tunnel, making it a no man's land. The resultant turmoil taxed Batman, Oracle, and the rest of the Bat family to their limits as they worked for months to maintain some semblance of order. In their corner were Lady Shiva's daughter, Cassandra Cain, the new Batgirl, Harvey Bullock, the grizzled cop who refused to let his city descend into madness, and opposing them, however, was a maniac sidekick to the Joker, one who soon established a reputation for chaos in her own right, Harley Quinn. And then at the very bottom, they throw in, oh yeah, and the Joker killed Commissioner Gordon's wife.
I forgot about that. I didn't like No Man's Land. I did not like that storyline at all for No Man's Land.
The thing I did not like about No Man's Land was it was like the Bat editors didn't really communicate, because it was like the story was way too just disjointed, like between all the different books. Because like it was either Batman or Detective, the story was really good, the way they're going. And then when you went to the next chapter, which I think was in Robin, it was like Chuck Dixon was like, "No, I'm not doing that," and just wrote his own story there. So it was disjointed. It was an interesting idea, but too many chefs. A new incarnation of the JSA, including the Teenage Stargirl, appeared. A new incarnation of Hawkgirl, the Kendra Saunders Hawkgirl. The arrival of Jakeem Thunder. The arrival of Michael Holt, Mr. Terrific. And then we go into all the new versions of the Golden Age characters. Nuklon became Atom Smasher. Sandy the Golden Boy became Sand. My favorite character from that time period, Dr. Peter Cross became Dr. Midnight. And Hal Jordan became the Spectre.
Again.
And then down at the very bottom of the corner, nonetheless, nefarious forces were on the rise. Lex Luthor, for instance, had connived his way onto the ultimate throne of power for a dark but thankfully short-lived term as president of the United States.
Okay, so we're finally getting to Lex being president.
Yes, but that was all we hear about Lex being president, because we're moving on.
Okay.
The next thing they bring up is the really well written story, but copied too many times. Tower of Babel, where Rachel Gould got Batman's files on all the JLA. Manchester Black appeared leading a team of heroes called the Elite. And Hush happened. And now we get really, really dark. We go into the graduation day event where Donna Troy died.
Again.
And then how that led to the formation of the new Teen Titans led by Cyborg and Nightwing's version of the Outsiders. And then because we have to make sure we kick all the puppies in the room, we have to go over Identity Crisis and the death of Sue
Wait.
Dibney.
You said
and
Nightwing version of the Outsiders.
Yes, there was after the
That was
graduation day. There was a
the
book.
one that had Grace Choi, right? That was the Grace Choi team.
Yes, it had
Okay.
great.
No,
I
was trying to keep. I'm just trying to keep all the Outsiders team fresh in my head here. I was like,
yeah.
that's a later incarnation.
And it had and it had the blue chick who you ended up finding out was another version of Brainiac from the future.
Mm-hmm.
But then we go into Identity Crisis and we find out Dr. Light's a rapist. The Justice League was mind wiping people, and Jean Loring was still nuts and killed Elongated Man's wife. So, and then here's one for you. No amount of darkness could overshadow the joy of seeing Supergirl return to life, resurrected and manipulated by Darkseid. So that whole storyline about
that's the Superman Batman story
about Kara coming to Earth. Yeah. So what they did though was now it was Kara coming back to life. So it was a pre-crisis Supergirl instead of it being the modern Supergirl. Like if you read Batman Superman, she landed on Earth for the first time.
Right.
So Darkseid brought her back to life. So this is the same Kara who died fighting the Anti-Monitor. Hal Jordan came back to life and became a Green Lantern, and again with a little bit of finagling of events. One last rebirth occurred during this time, but with less cause for celebration. The savage Red Hood, a vigilante without mercy or any code against killing, stood revealed as Jason Todd, revived and trained in secret by Talia al Ghul. Which, if you're reading comics at the time, Jason Todd came back to life because Superboy Prime punched a wall and changed history.
Oh,
That's how he came
yeah.
back to life.
Yeah.
Yeah. But now it was Talia who did it.
Okay. They are really doing a lot of retconning all these stories.
And
that
then
makes
we have,
me sad.
How do you think? Because the idea of him punching a wall has always made me laugh.
Well,
and then we have the Shadow Pack.
Okay.
And this one's funny to me. We go from the Shadow Pack to the Secret Six, and they mention that it was formed by Lex Luthor disguised as Mockingbird, but it doesn't talk about the Villains United stuff at all. Now we have Max Lord as being evil and taking over the Brother Eye satellite with the Omax, killing Ted Cord and Alexander Luthor, Superman from Earth 2, Lois, and Superboy Prime break out of their little dimension, and Infinite Crisis happens. And what I find really funny is even though they say over here where they're talking about all the heroes that Superboy Prime killed, including Connor Kent Superboy and the Earth 2 Superman, the picture that they have down here for the big ultimate fight is Superboy Prime standing over Dick Grayson's body, because in the original Infinite Crisis story pitch, Dick Grayson was supposed to die.
Right.
So I just thought that was a little bit funny they put that there. And then we go straight into 52, and we get Jaime Reyes, Blue Beetle, Booster Gold coming back, the Ryan Choi Atom, the Kate Kane Batwoman, Kate Kane Batwoman, and Renee Montoya as the Question.
Yep.
And then this one, during the time of 52, in secret, Superman and Lois Lane gave birth to their son, Jonathan Kent. So when at the end of Infinite Crisis, Superman was depowered because he flew through a red sun and he was off being Clark Kent for a while. Apparently, him and Lois had a baby in that time period. which is
Yeah.
That
completely
is
different from
true.
where Jonathan Kent came from.
That is true. I remember that because him and Earth 2 Superman had to take on Superboy Prime, and all three flew through that red sun, because the red sun doesn't hurt Superboy Prime, but it also doesn't hurt Earth 2 Superman. But it
But
did
this is a
depower.
retcon because Jonathan Kent came from the Convergence storyline that they did, where they had all those little bottled cities of time that Brainiac had. And in one of them was a trapped Superman and Lois Lane, and they gave birth to Jonathan. And at the end of Convergence, that version of Superman ended up in the New 52 Earth with John Kent. So that was a retcon. And immediately after Jonathan Kent was born, we got Damian Wayne, because of course we do. They the way they worded those, nothing, however, shocked our community more than learning Batman had a son. Born from a night of passion between the Dark Knight and Talia al Ghul, which is not what really happened. She Ruthied him, but you can't say that.
Actually, you can, just like
General
they
Zod came back to
retconned the
Earth.
whole idea about Batman going down on Selena, but all that got retconned too.
Yeah. Then we had the Sinestro Corps War, which was a great storyline if you've never read it. And then the introduction of all the different Lantern Corps. We go straight into the Blackest Night. And then we go straight from Blackest Night to Final Crisis, where Darkseid took over the Earth. The new gods and the new Mr. Miracle fought him. Batman shot Darkseid with a super gun, and then Darkseid, we thought, killed Batman, but he sent him back to be a caveman. And this is the part that made me laugh the most. With Darkseid's end, alas, an even more terrifying evil emerged: Mandrake, the Dark Monitor. His defeat came from and Superman from across the multiverse, and from mixed Wotan.
The time we got into a discussion, and then we wanted to make sure
they didn't say a word about Superman singing a song and blowing up that machine.
Nope.
And in the very last panel, Barry Allen returns. And that is the New History of DC Universe issue 3. They crammed a lot in there. They should have broken that up a little bit more.
And they still haven't gotten to the part that I was wanting to see how they're going to explain it, but we gotta wait, I guess. And you know what part that is?
Well, I've got part 4 at home. When I get back, I'll read it and I'll review it on the show one day. But I do know, spoilers for a book that's been out for a couple of weeks. They finally did what I thought they should have done for years. Everything in the DC universe, reboots, post-reboots, all of the characters remember all of it. And everything happened. So now they don't have to worry about, well, did this history happen? Did this continuity happen? Yada, yada, yada. It all happened. So they can write whatever stories they want to, and they don't have to do that. So
that would be nice.
But yes.
But the part that I'm waiting for here is I want them to explain how the Wildstorm universe fits into all of this. They have not truly touched that.
Yeah, I'm waiting for that. Yeah, because they haven't touched Wildstorm, and Alan Moore's thing. What was it? America's Best with Tom Strong and all that.
Right.
Neither one of those have shown up yet, so that's got to be an issue 4. But we'll see.
Because that's where I'm waiting. There has not been any mention of Gen 13 as of yet. There has not been any mention of Wildcats. I think they mentioned Zealot.
Yeah, and that should have.
I think that was in issue 2. I think that was in issue 2 that they mentioned Zealot for I don't know why they mentioned her out of the blue, but none of the major teams for Wildstorm has ever been mentioned.
I want to say that she supposedly I want to say supposedly they brought her up because she was like somehow or another related to the Amazons. I'd have to go back and look. But yeah, I mean, the Wildstorm universe should have been in there at least near where the Milestone universe was, because that all happened in our universe around the same time frame. So, but yeah, that was for you, Joe. I wanted to make sure I got that in.
Okay, that's not a problem here, but we are 30 minutes over time here, so I know we got to make our quick exits here. Yes, that's what I said. Wildcats was originally Wildstorm, and DC bought out Wildstorm Studios when Jim Lee became the editor-in-chief of DC. DC also bought Wildstorm from him.
Yeah, and they integrated Wildstorm into the DC universe with the New 52, but then they started ignoring it again. So I don't know.
Yeah. That would be interesting to see Wildcats done in that aspect here, especially after DC bought them. Before DC bought them, while it was with Image, not so much, because I look at that as X-Men clone. Wildcats being like an X-Men clone.
The Wildcats cartoon wasn't that bad.
It wasn't bad, but it still was an X-Men clone.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, it was Jim Lee. What else was it going to be?
Yep, that's true.
I'm going back to my family now, gentlemen.
All right, so with that being stated here, let's do a goodbyes here, because I know Elaine was talking in the background saying, yeah, we went over.
Sorry about that. My oldest is like, you're usually, why aren't you done? So I was trying to, and I forgot to mute myself. I am sorry, y'all.
Yep.
I forget things.
Yep. I remember Malibu, and how can we forget? Malibu came up with one of the most cringiest teams ever that had a cartoon series.
Ultra Force.
Yes. That was cringy.
I saw Malibu, and all I could think of was what's her name going, Malibu Barbie. We had to watch the second Addams Family to get that joke.
Man, I don't know. I like the word pumpkin from the Malibu universe, though. He was a cool villain.
Well, that's what they did not really give us. Nightman. You want to know what Malibu Comics? You want to know what Malibu Comics really gave to everybody? Malibu Comics gave us the means to color comics the way that they're colored now. That's why Marvel bought them. Marvel bought them because Malibu had a technique that was patented. And for any other company to have it, they had to buy the company outright. So they bought Malibu. Yeah. I didn't care too much for Ultra Force. I bought, what was it? I can't even think of the character's name now. It was a female character over there that was supposed to be like a clone of a clone of a clone. Siren. That's what I was thinking of. Siren. Yep. I was thinking of Siren here.
And Malibu. Also, remember, Malibu also gave us the 7th Infinity Gem.
That is correct, which is not canon anymore. And that's not even canon anymore.
Nope. It's stuck wherever the rest of the Malibu characters are.
See that would make me want to shake Marvel up and be like, we're going to come back out with New Exiles again, and New Exiles would be most of the Malibu characters. Bring them back properly into the Marvel universe. Even though we don't need a Prime, we don't need a Nightman, we don't need Hard Case anymore. It's like,
well, I mean,
all the characters that they came up with, it's like, yeah, Marvel already did better versions of this. Why do we really need them?
Well, I mean, we didn't need a Star brand either, but they did a good job bringing it in there.
What they did with Star brand now is great. You know, they de-aged him again. They making him relive his life all over, and the way that they write Starman makes it great. But anyway, it's time to make our exit. And Madam
I just
Higgett,
burned through an entire cherry coke and I'm yawning. Anyway, thank you guys for joining us, whether you are here with us live tonight, whether you catch us on a watch later, doesn't matter. The fact that you came here to see us, we appreciate that. You guys are what make what we do worthwhile. Otherwise, we could just sit in the bathroom and, talk to ourselves about this sort of thing. Anyway, I'm Elaine. You can find me lenscaponline.com. That's my website. At Elaine Haygood here at YouTube. Come see my channel. I got videos and stuff about things, specifically my first novel and my first issue of a 7 comic book miniseries that I'm working on, and The Coming of Nighttime. If you stop by either of those, drop me a line. Say, hey, girl, saw you on here, came and saw this, whatever, okay? I will respond at least within 24 hours. Y'all take care. If you can't behave, just be really good at what you do bad, okay? Love you. Please.
and now we got Cliff.
Thank you guys. I'm in Sam, I'm in Alabama, vacationing and field tripping. Pray for me.
You'll survive.
Next time I'm here, hopefully I'll go over the next issue. If I survive it, I'll go over the next issue of History of the DC Universe, and after that, I'm continuing my review of DCKO just to drive Joe crazy.
Yeah. And people almost got me to invest in it. That's what made it so messed up. I came that close to investing in it. I really did. I came that close. Yeah, I mean, I just, it's something about that storyline at the tail end of that issue number 1 that I just like, no, I just can't. I really can't. But anyway, Comic Book Spectrum is brought to you by Jeffrey Hayes and Plasma Fire Graphics. If you need a cover for your novel, your graphic novel, your comic book, whatever that it is in writing that is being compiled into a book, Jeffrey Hayes is just the person to call. Why? Because you want an award-winning artist who have won several Pulp Factory awards doing your cover. Because why? It brings people to your table. It gets people asking about your book, and it helps you with your sales. So if you don't believe me, take a gander at this.
You've worked hard and written a great book. Now it's time to give it a great cover. If you're an indie author or small press publisher, Plasma Fire Graphics is your source for affordable cover illustration and graphic design. Plasma Fire Graphics, when the look of your book matters to you.
Now, since you have seen the graphics, why don't you give Jeffrey Hayes a quick little message over there at Plasma Fire Graphics, or hit him up on his Facebook group, plasmafiregraphics.com. As far as I'm concerned, I'll be back here Saturday with another episode of From the Desk of a Small Press Publisher. Hopefully by then, because of a couple of things that's going on tomorrow, I should be finished with the next chapter that goes into the anthology comic for Legend of the Giantess Slayer. I might be showing off a couple of pages then. We'll be talking more about comics during that time here. Unfortunately, we ran out of time. I did actually had a comic book review in addition to, but I will save it for later because I know there's going to be some people that's going to be interested as far as what is actually happening with Fire and Ice from the DC universe as well. So until next week, live life, grow, and be well. And unlike our founder, Brian K. Morris, don't ever, 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 and I do mean ever, apologize for being awesome. Thank you for watching. We'll catch you right here next week for Comic Book Spectrum.